မင်္ဂလာပါရှင် One News ရဲ့ Weekends with စစ်စစ်တာထွန်းအစီအစဉ်ကနေပြီးတော့ကြိုဆိုပါရစေ။ကျွန်မစစ်စစ်တာထွန်းပါဒီတစ်ပတ်အစီအစဉ်ကိုမြန်မာနိုင်ငံဆိုင်ရာအထူးအာဏာကုန်လွှဲအပ်ခြင်းခံရတဲ့ Norway နိုင်ငံသားအမတ်ကြီး Her Excellency Miss Noway နဲ့တွေ့ဆုံမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ Norway ဟာမြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာတန်ရုံးကို2013ခုနှစ်မှာစတင်ဖွင့်လှစ်ခဲ့ပါတယ်။ဒီ9နှစ်တာအတွင်းမြန်မာနိုင်ငံအခြေစိုက်တဲ့အမတ်ကြီး2ယောက်ရှိခဲ့တာမှာဒီ2ယောက်စလုံးဟာအမျိုးသမီး2ဦးဖြစ်တာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ့ရပါတယ်။ Norway နိုင်ငံနဲ့ပတ်သက်လို့ကျမတို့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံကယဉ်ကျေးနေတာကတော့အဓိက Norway နိုင်ငံကနှစ်စဉ် Nobel ငြိမ်းချမ်းရေးဆုကိုချီးမြှင့်တဲ့နိုင်ငံတစ်နိုင်ငံဖြစ်ကြောင်းဒီဆုကိုလည်းနိုင်ငံတော်အတိုင်ပင်ခံဖြစ်တဲ့ဒေါ်အောင်ဆန်းစုကြည်အား1990ခုနှစ်မှာချီးမြှင့်ခြင်းခံခဲ့ရကြောင်းနောက်တစ်ခုကျမတို့အားလုံးသိနေတာကတော့ဒီတယ်လီဖုန်းကိုဝန်ဆောင်မှုပေးတဲ့ကုမ္ပဏီတွေတဲက Telenor Company ရဲ့မူရင်းနိုင်ငံဖြစ်တဲ့ဆိုတဲ့ကိစ္စတစ်ခုနောက်တစ်ခုလူသိများတာကတော့ DVB ရုပ်မြင်သံကြားဟာလည်းဒီ Norway ကစတင်ခဲ့တဲ့အကြောင်းတွေဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ Norway နိုင်ငံဟာဒီကြားမှတန်းတူညီမျှရေးကိုမူအရရောစနစ်အရပါလက်တွေ့ကျင့်သုံးတဲ့နိုင်ငံတစ်ခုဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကမ္ဘာကအသိအမှတ်ပြုထားပါတယ်။ဒီကမ္ဘာ gender ကွာဟမှုအညွှန်းကိန်းလို့ခေါ်တဲ့ဒီ Global Gender Gap Index အရတိုင်းထွာတဲ့နိုင်ငံပေါင်း153နိုင်ငံရှိတဲ့အထဲမှာ Norway ကနှစ်စဉ်ထိပ်ဆုံး9နိုင်ငံမှာပါနေတာကိုတွေ့ရှိရပါတယ်။1900ခုနှစ်ကနေစပြီးတော့အနှစ်100ကျော် Nobel ငြိမ်းချမ်းရေးဆုကိုပေးခဲ့တဲ့နိုင်ငံတွေဖြစ်တယ်။ပြီးရင်ကမ္ဘာတစ်ဝန်းမှာငြိမ်းချမ်းရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ပံ့ပိုးနေတဲ့နိုင်ငံတစ်ခုဖြစ်တဲ့အားလျော်စွာမြန်မာနိုင်ငံရဲ့ငြိမ်းချမ်းရေးခရီးစဉ်မှာ Norway နိုင်ငံကဘယ်လိုပံ့ပိုးနေပါသလဲ။ကျမ်းမာတန်းတူညီမျှခြင်းနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ဘယ်လိုလှုပ်ဆောင်နေပါသလဲဆိုတဲ့မေးခွန်းတွေကိုတမ္မကြီး Her Excellency Miss Noway နဲ့ကျွန်မမေးဆွေးနွေးသွားမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ So Excellency, first of all, on behalf of One News team, let me express our gratitude for receiving us at your residence and also to warmly welcome you and say Tusen Tak for coming on Weekends with Susutata. I know that you're in the midst of wrapping up your 4-year assignment in Myanmar, having served in Myanmar since 2016. So I think you must get to be asked this question quite frequently. What are your reflections after 4 years? So please bear with me and let me ask the same question. What are your reflections after having served here for 4 years? And how do you feel whether you have achieved the initial goals that you set out to achieve, both at the personal level and at the professional level? Excellency.
Thank you very much, first of all, for coming here, and tusen takk for coming here.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with your Norwegian. So I've been here now for 4 years, and I think this is the time for reflection, really. What was it like? And what was my thinking and my ambition when I arrived in Myanmar in September 2016? And what I wanted was to continue to build the relationship, the very good relationship between our two countries and between the people of our two countries, because this is really a joint friendship. So that was my ambition. And I think that we have managed that in many ways. We have had many exchange visitors from Norway to Myanmar and also from Myanmar to Norway. We have expanded our development cooperation here. We have seen some few more Norwegian companies coming. So I think that we have achieved a lot in many areas.
You feel that you have been able to achieve the goals that you've set when you first came here in 2016? What about at your personal level, Excellency?
So I think that I wanted, as I said, I wanted to improve the relationship between the two countries. And during the time I've been here, there have been more challenging times for Myanmar, and with the peace process, but also in Rakhine. So as time has moved on, I kind of have revisited my kind of mission here and tried to help out in many ways. And I would have been very happy if I could say that I have achieved more than what I have achieved. But I think that I've tried to do my best. And I think that we have exceeded in many areas. We have achieved a lot. But as I said, I would like to see even much more in many difficult areas. On the personal level, it has been so interesting to live here. This is the first time that I have lived in Southeast Asia. So I've learned about Myanmar, but also about this part of the world. And I have been able to travel around, and I've seen the diversity of this country when it comes to landscape, when it comes to people, when it comes to, national clothes and laundry patterns, when it comes to food.
Right.
And I also have a lot of friends and family visiting me, and they have all, become so fond of Myanmar.
I see. I understand the Norwegians are such an outdoor person, and so has your responsibilities and in Myanmar sort of impinge on the outdoor activities that you might otherwise have enjoyed.
So as you say, Norwegians, they like to be outdoor.
Right.
They like to go for walks in the forest. They like to go skiing during the winter time, and so on. They like to use their bike. Difficult to have a bike in Myanmar. I have a bicycle. I have.
Did you get to ride it?
I have used it.
Okay.
I have used it, but it has been challenging with the traffic.
Right.
It has.
Right.
So, and I have very much loved to travel to areas like Shan. I've done hiking in Shan. It's a beautiful landscape.
Right.
And it's something special with Norwegians because we are so fond of mountains.
Right.
So when we see mountains, we are so happy.
Right. Right. I see. Thank you. In my opening remarks, which I spoke in Burmese, one thing that I noted was we cannot help but notice that the two ambassadors, the resident ambassadors here, were both female ambassadors. We had Ambassador Anne, and now we have you. And we also noticed that in your country you have a female prime minister who is already going on to serve for a second term. And many of the top and very toughest ministries are being headed by women ministers. Like, for example, the Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Minister of Finance. They're all women. And if I recall, just a few years back in 2017, the UN Secretary General Guterres appointed one of Norway's top brass, Major General Kristen Lund, a woman, as the head of mission and chief of staff of United Nations Truce Supervision Organization in Middle East. And looking into sports, we also found that Norway's men's national football team proudly took a wage cut so that their salaries, their pay, is the same as the women national team. So it seems like there is gender parity across all spheres of work and life. So is the picture as rosy as it seems to be, as I read about Norway? How did you get to where you are right now?
Thank you. I think that's a very important question. And as you say, I mean, both ambassadors who have been based here has been female ambassadors. And I'm very happy to see that also my successor, that will also be a female ambassador.
I see.
And also the number of female ambassadors has increased. And right now, 40% of Norwegian ambassadors, they are female.
Right.
Not totally equal pay. No, for ambassadors. It's still the average salary of female ambassadors is slightly lower than the average of male ambassadors.
That's very interesting.
And that is the same in the Norwegian society as well.
Right.
We are not on the equal pay for equal work, but we are getting much closer, much closer.
Right.
And I think that is also what I will say, that in many areas of working life and personal life in Norway, we are getting, almost to be equal. But there are still some areas and there are still some struggles to be done. So if I look back, I think that my daughter, she has, when it comes to gender equality, she doesn't have a struggle. I have experienced many times during my working life that it has been challenging. And my mother, her generation
Right.
really had it very challenging.
Right.
And going back to my grandmother's generation as well, I mean, the expectation for them was to stay at home, not to take part in paid work,
Right.
to be totally financially dependent on their husbands.
Right.
But then over time, started in the 60s, increasing in the 70s and the 80s, then this kind of fight for equal rights started to come up. It did the same in other Nordic countries and also other European countries.
Right.
So it was not only in Norway, but it was very tough for those women who
Right.
kind of did to
Right.
have to take the lead.
Right. Right.
And I think over time we have achieved so many things. I mean, we have more, as you say, more women in government, more women in parliament, in politics.
Right.
We have changed our laws,
Right.
so that is much more equal now
Right.
than
Right.
it was before. We have done daycare for children before
Right.
they start school. Now almost all children can go to daycare.
Right.
That was not
Right.
the same when I was
Right.
was a kid.
Right.
So I think in many areas we have changed, but it has been a tough struggle,
Right.
and it has not only been women who has fought that battle.
Right.
It also
Right.
been men
Right.
who has also done that,
Like the football team,
alongside,
maybe.
like the football team.
Right.
Absolutely, taking a step forward and showing others that this is not right. We have to correct it.
So it's been both the fight for the forward-leaning women as well as the forward-leaning men that has brought you where you are today.
Yeah.
And the fight continues since society is not as equal as you would want it to be.
And I think it's very important to think that this is about power. This is about power.
Right.
And when you have, and let's say you have a gender, or like you had in Norway, who has some privileges, then it's difficult for them in the 50s and 60s to give that away. So it's really a power struggle to make
Right.
these changes.
Right.
It's not coming overnight. It isn't.
Right. It has to be a struggle
It
over
has
a
to be
period.
a struggle.
over
It
a
has to
period
be
of
a
time.
struggle.
Right.
It has to continue to kind of to be put on the table, so that we don't kind of move backward instead.
Right, exactly. We have to keep our eyes on the ball, so to speak,
We do,
right?
we do.
You already mentioned about the situation being different from your mother's time to yourself and now to your daughter. So I guess maybe building on that. So you're obviously, as people look at you from external, you're obviously a very successful career diplomat who has made it to the top as a ambassador. But can you share your personal journey with us? So what support did you get from your family, from your society, and from the system, like the law that you were mentioning, to support this work-life balance? And of course, I'm assuming that you have a work-life balance. I'm not quite sure. But, what support did you get from all these spheres?
So let me be a bit personal. I
Yes,
think that,
please.
and maybe my experience can reflect also some of the development in the Norwegian society. Because when I was born, my mother was still a student, and she has to give up her student life because she was expected to be a mother and take care of me.
Right.
And my aunts, they were all working, so I think I had a lot of role models
Right.
around me,
Right.
and they very much, and also encouragement from my family to also to take a master degree. So I did that, and when my mother, my sister, my younger sister, when she also left home and started to be a student, then my mother went back to university. So she graduated with a master degree at the same time as my sister graduated with a master degree.
Right.
So that was also kind of a very interesting to see that you can do that. So I studied first. I had a master degree in economics, and then I started to work for some years, and then I became a mother.
Right.
And at that time, I was very lucky because I could have a maternity leave
Right.
For a long period.
Right.
In my mother's generation, it was only for a few months.
Right.
I think what it is
now,
in Myanmar
is it 1 year
today.
together?
Now it's 1 year.
1 year.
1
right.
year and together, and that's also
and with paternity
very
leave,
important. Yes.
right? Right.
Very important is dedicated time for also the father.
Right.
And if the father does not take part of that time, then they lose it.
Right.
It cannot be given to the mother, and that's an encouragement. For the father to take, a stronger part in the life of
the
their
child.
children.
Right.
So I think that is the experience from Norway, is that you cannot leave this to the individuals themselves. You need to help them. You need to have the structure in place, and you need also to change the laws and the regulations that kind of make this happen.
What about the socio-cultural perspective? Is it very paternalistic in Norway, the cultural element of Norwegian society?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
That has also changed
that also
over
helped.
time. That has
Right.
helped a lot.
Right.
It has helped a lot. But let me take an interesting example, because in the 70s we had a law that said that to inherit a farm, it changed from being the first boy to the firstborn.
To the firstborn.
To the firstborn.
Okay.
So that means in the 70s, then also the firstborn, if girl, would inherit the farm.
Right. Right.
But still, you see that only maybe 30% of the new owners of farms are women. So it's still a tradition. I mean, even though the legal requirement is in place, it has to, the norms
practice
has to change,
right.
and the practice has to change.
Right. Right. So, okay. So it will take, the norms and practices would take longer to change than the laws itself. Thank you for that very personal stories. I think a lot of us in Myanmar could relate to the story that you've just shared. Thank you for that.
မြမရေးရကိစ္စတွေနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးပြည်တွင်းပြည်ပကနိုင်ငံခေါင်းဆောင်တွေနိုင်ငံတကာတန်တမန်တွေပြည်တွင်းပြည်ပရပ်ဖက်အဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေကတာဝန်ရှိသူတွေနဲ့ထင်ရှားကြော်ကြားသူတွေကိုတွေ့ဆုံမေးမြန်းပြီးတော့အပတ်စဉ်တနင်္ဂနွေနေ့တိုင်းတင်ဆက်ပေးနေတယ် Weekends with Susu Tathong.
Let me just go to a different question. So when Norway first established its embassy here in 2013, I think it was one of the first countries that started supporting the Myanmar peace process. I understand before coming to Myanmar, you also served in South Sudan. And we know that Norway was supporting the peace process in South Sudan. Now, the peace processes are very different. The country contexts are very different. So from a donor perspective, so how is the support different in these two countries from your perspective?
So first, I think that South Sudan is a special case in itself, because it's the kind of the youngest nation. It had to start from scratch to build all the institutions, and it also had assigned a peace deal that needed to be implemented. So South Sudan was turning to, first and foremost, to neighboring countries, and then to some of the Western countries for assistance. In Myanmar, I think that the reason why Norway took this role of supporting the peace process here is because we have experience from many countries to do that. So we have a good team also in Oslo helping on this, and we bring with us experience from a number of country situations, from Colombia, from many Philippines, from Sri Lanka, from many countries, and we have also experts that can help us to do that. So I think when I came here, I think that some of the things that I saw here is that in Myanmar it's not a peace deal; it's actually a ceasefire deal that has been signed. It is no one that is asked to be the mediator. There are some countries, big countries, not so big countries, who have special envoys that will help in the process. But there is no kind of mediation here from outside. It's a very strong ownership of the peace process in Myanmar, and I think that's key. That's really key for all peace processes. If you don't have the ownership, you will never kind of achieve a peace. So that's very, very good to see. So in a way, I think countries like Norway, we have helped when we have been invited in. And we see that with the experience Norway have from many areas, and especially on ceasefire, we have been assisting the JMC and their work. We have helped to build the kind of competence, not directly as an embassy, but with our independent experts that we have brought in.
Right. So would you say that your support to the Myanmar peace process, the modality with which you're supporting is somewhat slightly different from the other roles that you normally would be doing in other peace processes?
I would say it's different in the way that it's the ceasefire is, if I compare again to South Sudan, the ceasefire agreement is a bit more limited than the peace process agreement in South Sudan. And it's also that the stronger ownership in Myanmar also in a way put embassies and donors like Norway a bit further apart.
Right.
But despite that, we have done a lot on many areas.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. Is it really true that I've read a few articles that talks about that Norway is, or maybe is sensationalist, I'm not quite sure, so I have to ask you this. So is it true that you're running out of rubbish thanks to your waste management strategy and your implementation of that strategy, where your incineration plants are turning waste to energy so efficiently that you now have to compete with Sweden to get enough rubbish for your plants? I'm sure this is the kind of problems that many countries would want these days. So can you please share with us what the situation is?
Yes, and I'm happy to do that. And maybe let's start with all the rubbish that kind of turning into waste. Because what we do in Norway is that you're not allowed, to drop plastic in the street. You have to recycle everything. And in your household, you need to have paper one place and plastic one place. And if you have a can, you go to the shop and you get money when you hand it in. So it's a system in place for recycling.
Right.
And that is why you turn up with all this waste that you can actually turn into energy, as you said, with these plants.
Are you also fined if you drop plastic or garbage at the initial phases?
Not if you drop plastic, but if you have a lot of kind of more, if you are a plant or business, if you drop your waste, then you're fined.
Okay.
You're fined. Okay. But it's a very kind of talking about people. I mean, if I should drop plastic in a street in Oslo, people will stop me and say, you cannot do that. You have to find a bin. So I think that's kind of conscious about waste. So that, as you say, I mean, we have a lot of waste and how to use that waste. And that's, a fantastic source for energy. Right. So that is what we are doing. And we have plants in Norway, but we don't have enough plants in Norway. And that is why we have to export some of the waste.
So you are exporting because you don't have sufficient plants. Are you planning to build more plants?
We are building more and more plants in Norway, and that is a very kind of good way of getting energy in cities. So we have a number of plants in Oslo, and we are building more. But as I said, we have more than we can utilize, and that's why we export it to Sweden.
And the practice of not throwing garbage, just here and there, this is something that is taught since a child is very young, and it's also taught in school. Is that how it's done? And so there's peer pressure when people are throwing things irresponsibly. Is that?
But I think that your point about education is so important. I mean, this this is taught in schools. I mean, if you drop a plastic bottle in the nature,
Yes.
how long time will it take before it disappears?
Right.
I mean, it will take, it will never disappear.
Right.
And I think there is also a kind of a consciousness about that we need to, what we call the circular economy.
Right.
We don't have, we have limited kind of sources of what we have. We have to use it over and over again. We have to recycle. We have to make sure that we have that kind of circular economy.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Perhaps linked to that is, could you share with us your efforts at reducing the energy consumption, especially from fossil fuel? I understand that you have a large fleet of electric vehicles per capita, the largest fleet of electric vehicle per capita in the world. That is true? And can you share with us?
Yeah, we have
Right.
that. This is Norway is really the country where you find a lot of new electric cars. And that is very much linked to
Yes, you have charging stations that I saw,
have
right? Lots of charging stations.
We have
Yes.
all over the country. We have
Right.
that. We have
Yeah.
that, and it's very expensive to buy a car in Norway because you have to pay a lot of taxes. But if you buy an electric car, then the level of taxes is reduced.
I see.
So
there's
it gives
incentive.
people a very important incentive, and that is how you should use the tax system.
Right.
Punish behavior you don't want to have, and give
And also
incentives
carrots, yes.
for changing. So
Right.
that is what we are doing. And that is why we see so many new kind of electric car coming. And we actually have an electric car at the embassy here. We are very
great.
proud of that one.
Right.
And it's not the first electric
Right,
car that I
right.
have seen in Yangon, but
Yeah.
it's the first embassy to have an electric car.
Okay.
So very
Congratulations
very
on that.
Thank you, thank
Yes.
you. Proud of that. It would not make it to Naypyidaw. We can because there are no recharging kind of stations on
facilities
the
there.
way.
Right.
But we're happy to.
But how do you recharge here?
We recharge it in the embassy.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the facility here.
We have the facility.
I see.
We have.
I see.
No,
Okay.
no. I think that everyone is very conscious about their cars, and more and more electric cars. I'm very happy to see that.
Good. You will soon be wrapping up your assignment here in Myanmar. So what's next for you, if I may, and if you could share?
Yeah. Now I've been away then for 6 years.
Right.
So I very much would like to. I'm looking forward to going back to Oslo. To meet with my friends and my families, and not at least my children and my
Right.
old parents.
Right.
And then I also look forward to start to work in the ministry in Oslo.
Okay.
And I will take up on a position as a special envoy for freedom of religions or belief, which I think is a very
Is this an existing
interesting-
office?
Yes,
okay.
it is existing. It has been there for about 6 years. 6 years. It's also a position that you find in many countries.
I see.
I think that I have some experience from Myanmar that I will bring with me.
Right.
We have worked with an organization here called Religions for Peace.
Yes.
And we have also had a lot of visits from the Norwegian retired Bishop
Yes.
Gunnar.
Yes.
So we had this advisory forums
Very gentle soul. Yes.
in Naypyidaw, also
Right.
with the attendance of the state councillor has
Right.
been there.
Right.
So this is, I think, a very interesting position, and I'm happy to bring with me some
Yes.
good experience,
Lots of
from
experience.
Myanmar.
Right. Congratulations on that new posting. I hope you get some break in between taking up that assignment and leaving this assignment. Thank you for giving Weekends with Sisu a lot of your time. If I may ask whether you would like any messages, to give any messages to I know you've said your farewells to the authorities, but to the Myanmar public, whether you have any parting words.
I think that, first of all, I would say that I will go back as being a kind of ambassador for Myanmar in Norway.
Thank you.
Because I've learned about this beautiful country and people here, and I'm really kind of very fond of the country and people. I will bring a lot of good memories with me. I will also bring a lot of thoughts about the difficult time that Myanmar is facing in many areas. I'm thinking about conflicts, and especially in Rakhine. And I'm very sad to see that. And I'm also very sad to see ongoing conflict in many parts of Myanmar, because I'm thinking about so many civilians who are then suffering because of this, and how much Myanmar is losing because of the conflict.
Exactly.
And then I think about, I will follow Myanmar in the years to come, because I find that this part of the world, Southeast Asia and Asia, is growing in importance because of economy. You will attract more companies, also Western companies, to Southeast Asia, and I really hope that they will also come to Myanmar. You will have more kind of more interest because of politics. Some because of geopolitics and tension, and also then in other areas, security policies as well. But I also would like to see more exchange of a way of thinking and values between Western countries and Southeast Asian countries. I think we need to learn from each other.
There are a lot of shared values than the differences, and I think
that there will be areas we will not agree. There are other areas where we will agree, and I think that we will find out that the areas we agree are much bigger than what we have thought. But I think we need to exchange ways of looking at things, and we from Western countries, we need to learn, and also the other way around.
Vice versa. Yes.
But I think that is what I see is missing now. I see that there is a fight when it comes to values and ideas. And I would hope that it's not a fight. I really hope that we could sit and talk and exchange and be respectful.
I think there's, I think that is taking place already, hopefully. There's a lot of the connectedness that we have. We're being exposed to different values. So thank you very much, Excellency. Tusen tak.